Welcome back to another Under the Hood, where we will discuss some of our more intricate topics, get into some more mechanics kind of questions. Today, I have myself, Alex.
Myself, Timothy.
Daniel.
And Scott.
And we will be drawing a random topic from the Tome of Topics to see what it is we're going to be talking about today.
What are we talking about today?
Theater of the Mind versus maps and minis.
Mm. Oh, okay. I prefer the maps and minis myself, but that's because I think the only games I've ever played that I've ran as a GM have been Dungeons and Dragons. And you almost always need a map for that.
You don't have to,
but it helps a lot more with all the mechanics and knowing where everything is and all of that. I've never ran a game on the system where Theater of the Mind works better. I'm hoping to get there.
I am both. I like massive stuff happening. I like large battlefields where range is a factor. And by and large, you're not going to get that on a tabletop.
It's pretty hard to show, a quarter mile of distance on a tabletop.
Yeah. But in a close-up situation or where you've got combatants or sight lines are important, or if you have a lot of players, maps and minis are important.
Mm-hmm.
The larger your group size, the more likely it is they're going to get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because wait.
Which of us was closer to it?
Yeah.
And it soon breaks down to...
How many people are adjacent to that thing now?
Yeah.
With Theater of the Mind, most of the time it breaks down to who's closest to me that I can hit.
Yeah.
Okay, I will attack him. Why would you attack him? It makes no sense. I don't care. I have no idea where everybody else is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both have their uses.
Mm-hmm.
I think both have their pros and both have their cons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, lately I've typically been playing Theater of the Mind areas. A few maps here and there. And I there is the con of people forgetting where everything is, or sometimes when you're describing something, someone may be picturing something a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get confused and it ruins what they're going to do because they misunderstood where things were.
Mm-hmm.
Where you don't have that with the maps. It does, Theater of the Mind, in my experience, tends to get the imagination going more with what you can do in a combat.
Yeah.
And makes it more colorful, more vibrant of play, which I really like.
Yeah, there is a problem sometimes with maps and minis in the sense of, there's no chair on that map, so obviously there's no chairs in this room.
Yeah.
But it would be really cool if I could pick up a chair right now and smash it over his head. I mean, I had that idea, but it's not on the map. So.
I assume there's chairs if there's a table.
Right. It's just, you have more of that when you're doing Theater of the Mind. You're picturing it a little better.
Yeah.
But definitely there's...
The impetus to ask the question.
Because you're imagining the whole scene, you tend to become more imaginative with what you do, rather than seeing it. It's just like reading a book versus watching a movie. When you read a book, you picture it in your mind, and it is so much more. Whereas if it's a movie, there's no room for interpretation or imagination it's just what it is. Yeah. And I think it's the same way. Both are good. Both have their points.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's the difference to me.
From a mechanics standpoint, Dungeons and Dragons cares but doesn't. So long as somebody at the table, and it's usually the GM, remembers the range to everything.
Yeah.
And I find when I'm running Theater of Mind encounters for Dungeons and Dragons, that's, other than initiative, that's the primary thing I'm tracking when I'm in combat with my players.
Usually keep like a running tally of
Yes.
distances from basically each side to the center point or each side to the front line or whatever.
Yeah, I pick an arbitrary character or point to keep that distance from. And then it's every person has their initiative count and their range. And then the bad guys have an additional hit point number that I usually put in a circle.
Yeah.
And that just helps it so that everybody can know. And then it's a matter of, well, how far am I from him? And that's easy to determine.
You
And
started
then
out this many meters away, you've moved this many meters toward him, so
Yep.
you're that many meters away.
So that's the main thing that you need to keep track of. And that's only important for characters who don't have sharpshooter.
Yeah.
And
Or-
to ensure that that spell is within range. But that usually has more to do with you asking the player, wait, what's the range on that spell? And they go, oh, it's only 30 feet. Yeah, you can't do that. No, I can't do that.
Until you take Eldritch Spear.
What's the range on that? As far as I can
Or
see.
spell sniper.
Yeah.
Or both.
Or both.
There you go.
600 feet.
Huh.
With what spell?
The Eldritch Blast cantrip of the Warlock. If you take the Eldritch Spear, it increases it to 300. Spell Sniper doubles that to 600. As a
So
cantrip.
your Eldritch Blast now has the range of a longbow.
There you go.
Without the disadvantage.
Yep.
You had to take a feat for it though, so it's fair enough they could take sharpshooter and not get disadvantage as well.
True.
Anyways.
And the other thing is adjacency.
Yeah, I think that
Knowing who's adjacent to whom.
systems that have a lot of things like 3rd edition or 4th edition D&D where opportunity attacks just moving adjacent to the monster becomes a real big deal, because it's like, well, I moved adjacent to this guy, am I also adjacent to the other one?
Yeah.
When it's theater of the mind, it's like, I don't know, I don't want to deal with that fiddliness. Whereas with minis, you can tell.
Yeah.
And you can say, here's
And-
what you can and cannot do.
Speaking of that, if you're playing a rogue and you're doing theater of the mind, ensure that when you are describing your movement, that you say, I'm moving to a flanking position if I can, or ensure that your DM knows you're moving adjacent to whatever creature your ally is adjacent to,
Yeah.
so that you don't get gypped your sneak attack because you didn't say that.
Right.
And also, as a general rule, whether it's the rogue for that instance or not, don't assume because that is ideal, that is what you do every time. Because there are reasons to not do that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, granted, if you're moving and you're doing tactical combat, you should realize, it's a given they're going to try and get their sneak attack. But, at the same time, just because you can do something doesn't mean you're going to every time.
Yeah.
So I guess it's theater of the mind. I think is also a little bit more flexible in interpretation things. Like you gotta ask questions on those kind of things sometimes.
And in some ways, that's one of the benefits of theater of the mind also, is that in some ways better approximates the fog of war.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
true. You can't see what's in the other room just
Yep.
because you happen to be in the party with somebody who can.
Yep. And so basically, as in actual combat, only what's in front of you is all that you're concerned with. Yeah, you might hear somebody engaged over here, one of your allies is over here, but only the target you want to go after is the only thing that you're seeing. So that's the other reason that theater of the mind can be good, is to really put that into play. In fact, I might try that in the next time we do something. Is I'll present the battlefield, present the monsters, and you guys can choose up to your wisdom modifier and monsters to keep track of.
That'd be interesting. I like that.
Like keep
I wouldn't
track
mind
of as
playtesting.
far as like
Where they are in relation to you.
Well,
Oh,
trying
okay.
it out, that is playtesting.
yep.
First time you do it, it's always a playtest.
Yep, I wouldn't mind doing that.
Just so that I don't have to describe the whole battlefield every time.
Yeah.
It's just who are you keeping track of?
Yeah.
Okay, you are adjacent to that one. That one's 10 feet, and that one's 30 feet. And here's what they've done.
And everybody knows exactly where the boss monster is and keeps getting tripped up by frickin' minions because they couldn't keep track of them all.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting. Which
Yeah.
would be exactly what the boss monster's going for.
Yep.
Huh. Could be interesting.
Well, I think that's it.
Anyway, what do you guys think? Does it depend on the system? Does it depend on the people you're playing with or the space available? Let us know in the comments below. And if you have another question for our Tome of Topics, please submit them to us, and we'll bring them up and have our panel of vastly experienced members go ahead and talk on those subjects.
And I might chime in too.
And I didn't even get to talk about my mile square, 5-foot square maps in Roll20 that I like to make. See you later.
Bye!